having that secure bond, that interaction, that trust, that ability to do things together. And, as with almost any relationship you have, as you start to do things together more and more, you have conversations, not so much about what you're doing, but about what's going on in your world, what life is like, what you see, right? And so it's that bond, those activities that really set families up for positive youth development simply because they've been able to maintain these things. And you can do these things in multiple different ways.
Like any relationship, the bond between a parent and child can be made stronger. A child development specialist at Kansas State University says it starts with being intentional about spending quality time together. On today's Sound Living, Building a Stronger Bond. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman. K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles says that eating together, talking about your day, working on projects, and playing together all help to strengthen that bond. Bradford, I think we all know that bonding actually begins really just right after birth. But as time goes on, we really have to work to keep that bonding going.
Yeah, absolutely. And we do that through everyday interactions, right? All the things that we do, from getting dressed, tying our shoes, teaching and learning with our kids, right? It's the responsiveness that really matters to forming that bonding relationship, that bonded and secure relationship. It's really parents taking advantage of those everyday situations that can really build that and maintain that. And while for us, they might just be tasks that need to be accomplished, if we approach them as opportunities to interact and bond with our kids, it totally frames it in a different way. And I think parents can really find something much more satisfying in those things rather than just, okay, now he's got his underwear on, or I have his lunch packed, right? Those kinds of things.
Everybody probably has their own definition of bonding, but I guess maybe from your perspective, when we talk about that connection, what are we really talking about?
Yeah, so when we're talking about that connection, it really is around the shared trust, the responsiveness. So for young children to know that if they need something, they more than likely are going to receive that from their parent, from their primary caregiver immediately. Now, sometimes there's a delay, but that bond is really around forming that trust between one another, having a connection, an emotional connection, and it's that feeling of security that is foundational. It's that they know that their primary caregiver is a secure base from which they can explore their worlds, right? But they can always return back to that secure base. You can actually see it often if you're like at a playground. You'll see young children go out and explore something and then come back to their primary caregiver and then do a little bit more and come back. And then as they get older, adults have to be a little bit more intentional in nurturing that bond because, peers become more important, those kinds of things. And so again, when that starts to happen, leveraging those everyday activities can really continue that bond and build it and shape it.
You kind of made me think of the fact that sometimes we want our kids to be independent, but at the same time, when they start to move away from us, we do kind of start to think, oh my gosh, I'm not the center of their world anymore. And that's kind of a wake-up call to us. And I think that brings us back to the fact that once that bond has been established, you may grow apart a little bit, but that bond is always there. And what we need to do is find ways to continue to strengthen that bond.
Yeah, absolutely. And forming those bonds and maintaining them in early and middle childhood are the things that set you up for resilience in emerging adolescence, in the adolescent years, and on through emerging adulthood. That having that secure bond, that interaction, that trust, that ability to do things together. And, as with almost any relationship you have, as you start to do things together more and more, you have conversations, not so much about what you're doing, but about what's going on in your world, what life is like, what you see, right? And so it's that bond, those activities that really set families up for positive youth development simply because they've been able to maintain these things. And you can do these things in multiple different ways, right? So again, doing laundry together or doing homework together, right? That's such a great way, so long as you're not doing their homework for them. That's not good for either one of you.
Most parents can't do that now anyway.
That is true. That is true. Yes, particularly in the math world. Ask me how I know. But yeah, it's taking the time when you're in the car to talk with them about anything. It doesn't have to be about like how they're feeling about, the world at large, right? It can be, what do you see outside your window? What was the last book you read? Or, have you seen anything on TV that you're interested in, right? Anything like that, so that you're just connecting. And then most importantly is the responsiveness, right? So everything from being there when they can't find something. Anybody who's lost something knows how frustrating, and flatly for young children especially, it can be really, I won't go so far as to say traumatizing, but it can be very difficult for them to recover. And so being there to help them and if it's lost, it's lost. But if it is lost, then reassuring them, comforting them, helping them process that, that's how you form those bonds. So it's really about intentionality and about making everyday boring tasks not that they're opportunities to understand your child's inner world.
This is something that might be a little bit easier for someone who just has one child, maybe becomes a little bit more complicated with child 2, 3, and 4. But I think as long as we're intentional about it and we do take the time to spend some time with each one individually, is that kind of where we can bolster that bonding?
Yeah, absolutely. And certainly there are risks with putting all your energy into one of the children, right? Like you don't want to do that. One of my favorite things about my family of origin is my father did such a good job of making all 3 of his boys think that we were his favorite. And that is no small feat. But it was because he really was intentional about giving equal attention, equal responsiveness. And, he was stretched thin, just like any of us are. But the time that he had, he gave freely. And it's okay to have all of your kids together. It's just you can't let any 1 or 2 of those kids dominate your attention. It's about making sure that you include all of the children that are present in whatever activity is going on, even developmentally, right? So if you're thinking about cooking a meal, well, yeah, your 3-year-old isn't going to be standing there like your 9-year-old flipping eggs. That's not going to happen. But your 3-year-old can definitely help set the table. Is it going to be perfect? Absolutely not, right? Are they going to put napkins on the table? Yeah. Will some of them fall on the floor? Sure. But do they feel included? Are you forming a bond with them? Are you encouraging them to help? Do they want to help the family? Absolutely. Now, as they get into, 7, 8, 9, helping the family might not be quite so attractive anymore, but being able to learn new skills can be, right? So the motivation is different, but the opportunity for bonding is still there. It's just a different motivation. It's no longer so much like, I want to help. It's more, hey, this is cool, I get to learn new skills. So there are opportunities across different age groups. It's just being really intentional in including them all. And part of the multiple children element is they will also provide interaction with each other. And that's good too. So you want sibling bonding. You want that. It's not an either-or proposition. It's a both and. The more that your children are interacting with one another and forming those bonds, the easier it is for you to also do that. Years ago, there used to be this sort of idea that children could only form like one big bonded relationship. And we just know now that that's just simply not the case. It's sort of like a muscle. The more you flex it, the more you build, and your capacity gets better and larger. And so the better your initial bonding relationships are, the more and stronger your bonds are with multiple other people.
Parents also need to kind of think about what their kids like to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And sometimes that's a challenge, right? So you've got one child who wants to be outside kicking a soccer ball around, and then there's another child that wants to be doing art. And that's okay. The real thing is making sure that you are splitting your time. So if one wants to be outside kicking the soccer ball, that's fine. Go kick the soccer ball. know that you need to go also spend time with your other child in co-creating art, or at least having them talk through what they're doing with you. You don't have to draw or paint or whatever, but you need to understand what their thought process is. And I can tell you, it is so cool to hear what your children are thinking about what they're drawing, right? So one of my favorite questions around any of these things is, tell me about how you're thinking about this, right? Or, even when it comes to soccer, tell me about what you're thinking as you do this, right? And sometimes that's really hard for kids, right? Because they don't really think about their own thinking very much, right? We call that metacognition. But it's really cool when they do, because it has them stop and really think about their own intentionality. And the whole reason I got into child development is when you can see the wheels turning in young children, right? Like we've all seen it where suddenly something makes sense. And what I found is those questions around their own thinking, asking them about sort of how they're thinking, what their thought process looks, and not in a judgmental or like you never want to have it as, what were you thinking? Like, that's not it. It's more of I'm really interested in how this happened for you. It is just the coolest when you realize that they're starting to understand, to really process what it is they were doing, right? And so, in sports, it helps children improve when they think about what it is that they're doing rather than just reacting. Now, eventually they'll get to a point where they are reacting, but it's informed by their thinking and their training so that it's automatic. But, when it comes to art, especially in young children, I love hearing about what is going on in their drawings, even if their drawings are just completely indecipherable, right? It's so fascinating. I just love it so much. And I think, being open to that, in my world, we talk a lot about mindfulness, and mindfulness is really around being open to possibilities. And so with parents and forming those relationships, it's so much about being open to what your child wants to teach you or tell you about themselves. We all get caught up in those tasks. We all do. I mean, I'm as guilty as anyone sometimes. I just have a thing that I need to accomplish. Like, for example, we all need our children to take showers or baths, right? My 9-year-old is perfectly capable of bathing herself. But, there's also the opportunity to teach her about how to brush her hair all the way, right? How to get all the conditioner out of her hair. Right, so those are tasks, but those are also real opportunities to go, hey, if you do it this way, then these benefits come. And we can, talk about what good hygiene is like, what that does for you in terms of your self-esteem and your social opportunities, right? And so, yeah, do I need to teach her about getting the conditioner out? Of course, but there's more than that happening there. And as long as we're able to pause and recognize that instant compliance isn't always the thing, we can go a long way. Now, sometimes we're in a hurry. Sometimes we just got to go. And in those cases, it's good to just get going. You can explain what urgency means. And that's another opportunity for you to form that bond and go, hey, we're hurrying because it's rude to make people wait. Or if we don't get there on time, we're going to get a bad seat, and our enjoyment of the program that we're going to go see isn't going to be as good because we were late, or, we're going to miss the bus, or whatever it is. But it's just having that opportunity and that conversation. And again, it's a conversation. We don't want to just be so heavy-handed that it's always this top-down, I'm the parent, you're the kid, you do as I say. It's more trying to understand where they are and then helping them get to a different level of thinking that is guided by you.
That's K-State Research and Extension Child Development Specialist Bradford Wiles. More information can be found at county and district extension offices. Sound Living is a weekly public affairs program produced by Research and Extension at Kansas State University. I'm Jeff Wichman, and this is the K-State Radio Network.